interesting stories you need to know in Nigeria. The story of how Murtala Muhammad was killed on the streets of Lagos. On the 13th of February in 1976, General Ramat Murtala Muhammad was assassinated on his way to work by some military men who were loyalists of the then head of the Nigerian Army Physical Training Corps, Lte Col Buka Suka Dimka. Late General Murtala Muhammad was born on the 8th of November 1938 in Kano to Risqua Mohammed and Uwani Rahamat. He was the 9th out of 11 children and attended Barewa College in Zaria, where he graduated in 1957. General Murtala joined the Nigerian Army in 1958 at about 20 years of age and went to Sandhurst Royal Military Academy in England, where he was trained as an officer cadet. He was also a federal minister commissioner for communications. General Murtala took over power as the military head of Nigeria on the 29th of July, 1975, when General Yakubu Gowon was overthrown while he was at the 12th summit of the Organization of African Unity, OAU, in Kampala, Uganda. Murtala was notably known for his simple lifestyle, which many believed led to his death as he was without escort at the point of his assassination. He was also known to be keen on restructuring. At a point, he reduced the total number of active Nigerian soldiers by 100,000. He approved Abuja as the new federal capital territory on February 5, 1976, due to the overcrowding of Lagos, the then capital. He also created 7 states 10 days before his untimely death. His assassination. On 13 February 1976, General Muhammad set off for work along his usual route on George Street. Shortly after 8 a.m., his Mercedes-Benz car traveled slowly in the infamous Lagos traffic near the Federal Secretariat at Ikoyi in Lagos, and a group of soldiers, members of an abortive coup led by Dimka, emerged from an adjacent petrol station, ambushed the vehicle, and assassinated Muhammad. Murtala Muhammad was killed, aged 37, along with his aide-de-camp, Lieutenant Akintunde Akinsehinwa, in his black Mercedes-Benz saloon car on 13th of February 1976. The car was ambushed en route to his office at Doton Barracks, Lagos. The only visible sign of protection was a pistol carried by his orderly, making his assassination an easy task. The assassination was part of an attempted coup led by Lte Col Buka Suka Dimka. He was executed on 15th May 1976 at the Kirikiri Maximum Security Prison in Lagos for treason. He was succeeded by the Chief of Staff, Supreme HQ Olusegun Obasanjo, who completed his plan of an orderly transfer to civilian rule by handing power to Shehu Shagari on 1st October 1979. Today, Muhammad's portrait adorns the 20 Naira note, and Murtala Muhammad International Airport in Lagos is named in his honor. Thanks for your time, and don't forget to follow us. How and why Kudera Abiola? The wife of MKO Abiola was brutally assassinated in 1996. Alhaja Kudirat Abiola, a politically and socially active woman during her days, was the beautiful wife of late business mogul and respected politician Chief Moshood Kashimawo Olawale Abiola. Her struggles, efforts, and the tireless support she gave her husband, MKO Abiola, when he was incarcerated, led to untimely. On the 4th of June 1996, Abiola was assassinated by some gunmen in Lagos who allegedly acted on the orders of the Sani Abacha's military junta. Her background. After President Ibrahim Babangida annulled the June 12, 1993 election, which had MKO Abiola as the winner, several riots ensued across the country. Especially, this led to the demise of President Babangida's military regime and the birth of the Shonakan-led interim national government on the 26th of August, 1993. Before Babangida stepped down from power, he set up an interim government which was to oversee the transition of power to a democratically elected government. MKO Abiola did not support the interim government, as it had no plan of restoring him as the president of Nigeria. The interim national government was later sacked by General Sani Abacha. At first, MKO Abiola supported Sani Abacha's military regime, hoping Abacha would return. Abacha refused to do so. MKO Abiola went ahead to declare himself as the president on the 11th of June, 1994. 12 days later, he was arrested. Fully armed men opened fire on Kudirat Abiola's car. The gunman shot at close range, and Kudirat's driver got his mouth and shoulder pierced by a bullet, while Kudirat, their main target, was hit in the forehead and instantly lost consciousness. She was rushed to the Echo Hospital on Mobolaji Bank Anthony Way in Ikeja, Lagos, where she eventually died between 12:15 and 12:30 p.m. However, Kudirat's personal assistant, Lateef Shofolahan, escaped the attack unhurt. He was later accused of being involved in the murder plot of Kudirat Abiola. Old Naija gathered that prior to Alhaja Kudirat Abiola's murder, there were 2 attempts to take her life before the plotters allegedly penetrated her network through Lateef Shofolahan. After the assassination, the Abacha military government offered the sum of $45,000 to anyone who could give information leading to the arrest of the assassins. Later, Hamza al-Mustafa, the chief security officer of General Sani Abacha, was accused and convicted. Investigations into the killing traced the killer's bullets to his, Hamza al-Mustafa, personal armory. In October 1988, Hamza al-Mustafa and Mohammed Abacha, General Abacha's son, appeared before the court, both charged with the death of Kudirat Abiola. In the court, Muhammad Abdul, one of the assassins, narrated how the Abiola's network was penetrated through Lateef Shofolahan and how Mohammed Abacha gave him and other gunmen $10,000 to flee the country when Obasanjo's government began an investigation on Kudirat Abiola's assassination. Another member of the killer squad, Barnabas Jabila aka Sergeant Rogers, confessed that he was acting on the orders of Hamza al-Mustafa and that he, Hamza al-Mustafa, gave the contract to kill Kudirat Abiola to Rabo Lawal, the head of the mobile police force at the presidential villa. He also said that they were provided weapons for the operation in the presence of Mohammed Abacha. In May 2001, a federal high court in Abuja freed Mohammed Abacha on the ground that he was simply roped in on circumstantial evidence. Also, Hamza al-Mustafa and Lateef Shofolahan, who were sentenced to death by hanging on January 30, 2012, were later freed on Friday, July 12, 2013, on the ground that there was not enough evidence to prove them guilty. Alhaja Kudirat Abiola's assassination remains one of the top assassinations in Nigeria. Credit, Old Naija.
Story of Kola Olawuyi, the investigative journalist who exposed Reverend King and other evil people. When Kola Olawuyi died in 2007 at the age of 44, I knew quite a few people that shed tears. The man once ruled the airwaves with his Iriaye radio program that I grew up to. When it's 8 p.m. on Fridays in the southwest, it's normal to see a lot of people huddled up around radio sets in street corners, homes, and electricians' workshops as they listen to Kola Olawuyi's program. It was a weekly ritual we grew up to. Kola Olawuyi was larger than life. The number of cases he tracked down and brought to life have not been done by anyone else around here since his death. No one has ever had that kind of confidence since Reverend King's case was brought to light by him. Churches whose owners buried people alive in their buildings as rituals to draw crowd. A lot of cases of abused children and people claiming to be witches to hurt others. Ajaile underground killing houses stories where kidnappers then were raided by him and brought to light. Blood ritual killings and ritualists in the southwest Ek. There was a woman called Malika that said she was God and created everyone and could do what she liked with anyone until Kola Olawi dragged her to light and more. The man was fearless and appeared unstoppable. Listening to him was scary and exciting. On one hand, you admired his courage. On the other, you feared for his life. It wasn't surprising then that when he died, a lot of people's default setting was, oh, they got him finally. Perhaps even he had that thought at the back of his mind, hence at the end of every show he'd always say, Amabe or Beni Beshu Atelese Abeno. Embanyamo Bonikan Lani Debanle will always go out to work. It's those that don't want us to return that we won't meet when we return. His life was a mystery too, even though he was a member of the Redeemed Christian Church. The number of occultic cases and ritual killers he took on and exposed made people believe he was occultic himself. When news of his death broke, from most people was that the witch. Some said he cut a tree around his house after he was warned not to end his death. Others said some occultic groups that it belonged to even cut off his head after his death because it belonged to them. In the end, to lay all of that to rest, his family had to have an open burial and open casket for the 44-year-old so everyone could see that he died of natural causes and wasn't mutilated or anything. But again, he wrote the mystery angle really hard too while he was alive. Maybe he even talked with it. Whenever it was 8 p.m. on Fridays, and you heard Hubert Ogunde's Shigbawo open the occultic calabash start playing on Kola Olawi's Iririaye program, you knew it was going to be a tough night. Continue to rest in peace.
Story of the Nigerian who changed his family name just to marry a widow. In 1930, he is the man Kofo Abayomi Street in Victoria Island. Lagos was named after. Old Nigeria was filled with assassinations and coups. This is a story of assassination and love. Lagos lawyer Moronfolu Abayomi was shot dead in a Lagos courthouse at the Tinubu Square on August 25, 1923, 3 months and 15 days after his wedding day. Abayomi's killer was a popular Lagos entrepreneur and big boy, Duro Delfonso, from the renowned Delfonso family. Delfonso was having a legal battle with his insurance company, and the case was taken to court. The insurance company then hired a young and vibrant lawyer, Barrister Moronfolu Abayomi. As the case proceeded, the young barrister was able to prove clearly that Delfonso committed arson on his home and business in order to defraud the insurance company. On August 25, 1923, when Delfonso was being led out of the court to begin his prison sentence, the convict shot the revolver and turned the same gun and shot himself. Barrister Moronfolu Abayomi died from excess blood loss while he was in the hospital. The bullet had penetrated his lungs. Delfonso himself was hospitalized, but the Lagos big boy refused to be treated and died 6 days later on August 31, 1923. The barrister's young widow, Oyinkansola, was devastated and refused to love any man again until 6 years later, in 1929, when a Kofo Worola John showed her a love greater than her late husband's and asked for her hand in marriage. Oyinkansola would only agree to get married only on one condition, that Kofo Worola John bore the name of her late husband, that is Abayomi, and relinquish his own on. Surprisingly, he agreed and they got married the next year in 1930. They would be married for the next 48 years until Sir Kofo Worola Abayomi's death on January 1, 1979. He was 82. Lady Oyinkansola Abayomi would live to the ripe old age of 93. The Kofo Abayomi Street in Victoria Island, Lagos, is named in his honor. Kofo Worola Adekunle Kofo Abayomi, the 10th of July, 1896, the 1st of January, 1979, was a Nigerian ophthalmologist and politician. He was one of the founders of the nationalist Nigerian youth movement in 1934 and went on to have a distinguished public service career. Most people don't know that a plane hijack has ever happened in Nigeria. Yes, it has, and it happened on October 25, 1993. This is the story about it. This is a story of how young Nigerians hijacked Nigerian Airways on October 25, 1993, because they were dissatisfied by the annulment of the June 12th elections by the military head of state, General Ibrahim Babangida, on October 25, 1993. 4 dissatisfied Nigerian teenagers hijacked a Nigerian Airways Airbus A300 flying from Lagos to Abuja and diverted the plane to Niamey, Niger. They were dissatisfied of the June 12th elections by the head General Ibrahim Babangida. The young Nigerians, Richard Ogundaru was 19, Kabir Adenuga was 8, Benneth Oluwadaisi was 20, and Amp Kenny Rasak Lawal was 19. They all unassumingly boarded the flight at MMA alongside other passengers. About 16 minutes before landing, they waited until the pilot announced that passengers should fasten their seatbelts and prepare for landing. The next thing the passengers heard was, "Ladies and gentlemen, this plane has been taken over by the Movement for the Advancement of Democracy. Remain calm, we will not harm you. You will be told where the plane will land you. You do not move, or you die." The leader of the hijackers, Richard Ogundaru, a 19-year-old, walked into the cock process, and then one other followed. 2 remained to watch over the passengers. When he got to the cockpit, the pilot knew immediately this was an attack, so he had to obey the instructions given to him. Ogundaru then asked the pilot to divert the aircraft straight to Germany. The pilot convinced him the plane did not carry sufficient fuel to cross over the Atlantic, and then suggested they divert to a nearby country, Niger, or they will crash, and everybody dies. The 2 hijackers told the pilot what they wanted was where they could give publicity to their reason for the hijack. They told him they wanted Germany because they could have good press coverage that would support their democratic cause for Nigeria. Everybody would die. But that couldn't happen because of the fuel shortage. They agreed to land in Niamey, Niger Republic. Upon landing, the hijackers found themselves surrounded by hundreds of armed Nigerian soldiers at the airport. They had earlier distributed their demands in pamphlets among the passengers, calling on the Nigerian government to overturn the annulment of the June 12th election. They gave the government 72 hours to meet their demands, or else they would set the plane ablaze. To show they were not ready to kill anyone so long ago, they released 34 of the 193 passengers, among whom were top Nigerian government officials. The leader of the hijackers spoke to a BBC correspondent. The correspondent asked what they were fighting for, and he told him they wanted to actualize the mandate given by the Nigerian people to MKO Abiola. Nigerian government sent 24 delegates to come and talk to the hijackers, but none of them entered the aircraft to talk to them. Instead, they were in the hotel, asking them to come down. The Nigerian soldiers did not storm the plane because the hijackers claimed to have rigged the plane with explosives, and so began negotiations, keeping the remaining passengers hostage. For 3 days, the hijackers and the passengers fed on coffee and biscuits. At some point, they ran out of water for coffee, and one passenger demanded for water. Under the guise of bringing them water and food, the Nigerian soldiers eventually realized the hijackers were not armed, and under the cover of darkness, they stormed the plane. They were arrested, cuffed hands behind their backs, and taken straight to a prison cell. The hijackers spoke neither Hausa nor French, and nobody made any attempt. They were denied food for days. The hijackers were remanded in Niamey prison for 9 years before they were released in 2001. The end.
Story of Harrison Okin. The Nigerian man who survived 3 harrowing days under the sea. Some stories touch your heart and make you marvel at the unbelievable things that have happened to people, and this is one of them. In 2013, Harrison Okin was working as a cook on a tugboat off the Nigerian coast. The boat was stabilizing an oil tanker and had a crew of 12 people on board. An ocean swell came out of nowhere and slammed into the smaller boat, immediately capsizing it and sending it sinking into the ocean depths. With the boat went the entire crew, sadly locked in their rooms as they sunk towards a sure death. A lucky coincidence may have saved his life. The rooms of the boat were locked as a security practice, as pirates often rob the boats in that region. They locked the doors to keep the contents and the passengers safe. This worked to everyone's detriment, as the entire crew were asleep in their chambers, except Harrison O'Keefe. It was this exact moment that he'd found himself on the toilet and was literally sitting there when the boat got hit by the wave. He'd gotten up early and was getting ready to start cooking breakfast for the crew. The jolting him from the bathroom tossed him around the ship as the boat aggressively sank down. When the vessel finally settled at the bottom of the ocean, Harrison was lucky enough to stumble into an air pocket. He managed to find 2 mattresses to stack on top of each other and stayed above the rising water in his tiny little chamber. He spent the next 60 hours floating in an air pocket. It makes me nauseous just thinking about it. If Harrison O'Keefe was claustrophobic or scared of deep water, chances are he would not have made it. It was because he stayed calm that he was able to survive for 60 hours with no food or water, and almost no air. The bubble of air that he found surely saved his life, but it would have not lasted for much longer. Given the small area he was in, the rising water, and the elapsed time, the air he was breathing was calm and cool, and just really freaking grateful that they were there to rescue him. They had to be super careful with him, as he'd been in such deep water for so long. He'd absorbed potentially fatal amounts of nitrogen, and if they brought him suddenly to the surface, he could have easily died. The crew equipped him with a special suit and started his ascent back into life above water. He passed out on the way up, but survived to tell his story. He spent 2 days in a decompression chamber and suffered responsiveness and insatiable hunger. But he made it. However, it wasn't until they rescued him and brought him to the surface that they informed him of the bad news. He was the sole survivor. While he was under the water, he thought of his family, his mother, and his wife. He didn't have access to any of them, but what he did have access to was his faith. He prayed and prayed, and God was actually there to answer. After such an ordeal, literally for a long time, Harrison suffered awful nightmares. He'd wake up in the middle of the night feeling like his bed was sinking into the water. Even though he never wanted to go near the ocean again, Harrison O'Keefe abandoned his fear and became a certified commercial diver in 2015. Here's the beauty of it: the rescue diver who discovered him at the bottom of the sea was the one to present him with his diploma. I hope you enjoyed the story.